Today we're going to be driving what I think is the best 991 generation 911, looks-wise. Driving-wise, we'll have to talk about. But let's get in and go for a drive. Apologies for the dark garage. Just finished driving the car. This is kind of an intro to the intro, but I just wanted to apologize. My thoughts aren't as concise as usual. They kind of evolve throughout the video, so I hope you guys enjoy. So today we're driving a pretty special car. The 991.2 Speedster is the first Speedster that really was a special chassis. The 997 was just a Carrera, I believe, GTS underneath with, you know, the fancy windshield and the bubbled rear deck. This has gt3 suspension, gt3 engine. I expect them to make another one for the 992, but for now, this is the only convertible gt3 technically in the world. The thing with that sentence is this car doesn't drive like a gt3. The Speedster, to fit, you know, a convertible theme, got a lighter clutch, which I'm not a huge fan of, but, you know, in traffic, if you're taking this on a longer in touring trip, I just got out of my Lotus, which has a really heavy clutch, so this feels pretty weird to me, but it's okay, you'll live with it. Then they took the suspension, softened it. If you've ever been in a 991.2 or 992, 911, even the 991.1, they're not great riding cars. To be honest, this is the best riding 911 I've ever been in by a lot. And obviously that's not a negative thing, but it's so soft. The steering isn't as precise as I want it to be, and the car just doesn't feel very raw, which is ironic because, you know, when they showed the concept, the car didn't even have a roof. So, I don't know. I think I just got the wrong impression with this car. I pictured a GT3 with a stick, and I think you got a really comfortable 911. Really comfortable 911. Oh, ironically, we have the Porsche, the 918 seats, so they're not the most comfortable seats, but they're sick, and I think they fit with a G3 theme. We'll see when we get down to the back road that I always take you guys on in these videos. There's just like a little hopping in the rear. The car just doesn't feel like it's sprung right for a track car, but the transmission is great. I mean, it's probably the tightest gearbox I've ever driven. The shifter's a little short, which I don't love, but again, there is that G3 engine, which sounds great. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Maybe I'm gonna convince myself differently. I'm actually really enjoying this car right now. But the price point is the big issue I have. This car with options was $302,000, and I just don't think it's special enough for that price tag. We've had some build quality issues with this car, which I think has put me off on the car. Nothing major, but tail light went out, parking brake went out, still kind of goes out every once in a while. They replaced the seatbelt sensor and told us it was fixed. I knew on a manual car specifically, and the fact that it's latching is the issue, not unlatching. There's no way the seatbelt sensor was what's wrong with the parking brake, and it almost ran me over once when my dad was, I was putting the Strickle Charger on, and I went by in the car, and my dad got out and started rolling into me. So that's not fixed. The dash, I'll show you guys later, is it's just got some wrinkles in it, which for a car that's garage kept, and Porsche wouldn't replace it, and that's extending to other places on the car. But right now, I'm really enjoying the car, so I can't lie. The steering isn't Lotus McLaren sharp, but it's just too light. There's some feel. It's definitely better than a regular 911. It's just really, really light. I don't have a crazy amount of seat time in a GT3, so I can't attest to this, but my friends at a dealer who just sold a Speedster told me the throttle response on this is quite a bit slower than a GT3. I could imagine that, because it's not like amazingly quick. It's definitely slower than the Lotus, which isn't, it's just a Camry, supercharged Camry V6. But I can't confirm that, but I have now seen it on Renlist, the forum, the Porsche forum, and had it been told to me. So that's one more change I can possibly tell you. Does sound good, I can't lie. Also, thanks to this Volvo that just pulled out in front of me, I can tell you the brake's pretty good. It's a short throw of the gearbox, which I think I prefer a little longer, the Lotus a little longer, or maybe I'm just used to it because I've been dealing the Lotus for a month now. But as far as something you're gonna drive on the track, which I know a manual transmission is not the first choice for, but I would be a lot faster in this car than the Lotus. Forget the cars, just shifting wise. I mean, the shorter throw, it's tighter gear to gear. It's honestly a little, I actually went from 2nd to 5th last time I drove this car. Like the first time I was pulling out, I see it, it tells me, so I didn't let off the clutch or anything, but that's just how much tighter this is than the Lotus. So 2 to 3 is 2 to 5. This icon telling me to shift up all the time when I'm at like 2,000 RPM driving around in a car that revs to 9 is a little annoying. I know it's like peak fuel economy, but that's not what you really need. I put the chassis in sport, exhaust is on, let's give it a go. Kind of impressed. Not sure what this BMW is doing. I guess he's avoiding the back road, but we have some space. Let's give it a go. Do I get Porsches a little more now? I'm not carrying the same speed I am in the Lotus or the McLaren, but that feels pretty solid, to be completely honest. That is the most annoying messaging notification I've ever heard. What the heck is that? I don't think I've ever hooked a phone up to Bluetooth in this car. Oh my god, that is bad. But the steering, that wasn't terrible. It's electric steering, so I can't expect McLaren or Lotus steering, but it was less hopping. I was going a little slower on the way up because there was a car on the wrong side of the road. Speaking of cars on the wrong side of the road, now we have trucks on the wrong side of the road. Interesting. I've done so many miles in this car and I've never had to take it for gas because it's got a 24.6 gallon tank, I believe. The funny thing is trucks aren't allowed on this back road here for good reason, because they don't fit. And I keep seeing them try to do it and almost killed me in the McLaren once on that road. There's actually a video on the channel of that. It doesn't feel fast. I will agree the throttle response is actually a little slow, especially for a naturally aspirated engine. Slower than what I'd expect, especially from a racing engine. But I don't know. It definitely has a solid feel to it. The steering's a little too light, I'll say that. It's not as much feel as a McLaren or a Lotus, but I think I'd have to take a GT3 on a back road, which maybe we'll do soon. And maybe I'll have more comment for that, but I'm honestly, this is more the gentleman's GT3, I guess. It's a little calmer, not a giant wing, not as in your face. It's not as loud either. For 2019, they had to put the particulate filters on the OPF for Europe, and instead of taking them off for the US where you don't need them, they put baffles in to quiet it to make it sound like the European cars, which is whatever. Maybe we'll put an exhaust on this car if we end up keeping it, but it's a little frustrating. I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell in the camera, but it isn't like insanely loud like a lot of the GT3s you'll hear. Doesn't mean it sounds bad though, because it sounds pretty good. Just not insanely loud. Sounds good. Can't lie. Does sound good. I think how good this car is your expectations of it. If you're expecting a cruiser with a roaring engine, well, not as roaring as a GT3, but a roaring engine, you'll be happy. It's got a great transmission, it's very comfortable, you could drive this car for hours and hours. If you're looking for a race car that you could put the roof down off, that you could take the roof off of, this is the wrong car. And to be honest, that's what I was expecting. I didn't even have my driver's license when I got this car. I actually had my permit, but the first time I drove it, I'm like, this isn't really what I was expecting. And then ever since then, that just compounded, and I never really enjoyed it. But now I've disliked it so much for so long. Driving it right now, I'm enjoying it. I mean, you just go down 2 gears, you get a little noise. It's fun. It's not the ultimate cutting edge, just back road killer. This doesn't feel like it should be the same price as a McLaren. Porsche has that brand name. They are that car right now. So this car is trading for about 400 grand. The 720 is trading for low 2s. I think it's like twice the car, and it goes for half the money. So that's what kills me with this car. But if you're just talking about fun factor, it can be fun. Of course, it's a $300,000 Porsche. This is more of a Grand Touring car than a race car. that's what you need to go in first impression with. The steering isn't as quick as, like that play, if you did that in a McLaren or Lotus, the front starting, this doesn't do that. That might even be the case with the GT3. The steering's just not as lightning quick. There's no raw feeling mechanics in this car. Even though it's a stick, it's a very solid car. It's a very quiet car inside. What I'd call this is they took a Targa, they made it look better, they put the double bubble back, speedster windshield, they put a GT3 engine and GT3 suspension in it, and then softened the crap out of the suspension in it. I wouldn't look at it as a GT3 convertible, even though that's really what it's billed as. I would look at it as a track-ready Targa. I don't even know. It's in a weird middle ground, and that's really why I've never fallen in love with this. When we get further up the road, I want to show you guys what I mean, but the front end feel in this car for me isn't up to par with what I expected for it. The just grab, when people, this is an extreme example, but when people say Max Verstappen loves a pointy front end in his Formula 1 car, I could never drive what Max Verstappen sets his car up as. But the McLarens feel like a really pointy front end. From what I've seen from people who have driven both, a 991.2 or a 992 GT3 has a pointier front end than this. This, because of the softer springs, it doesn't just dart in the way you want it to. And for me, that just provides a lack of connection to the car. And that's, to be completely honest, where I find fault in this car. Because it's a very comfortable car. It's got a GT3 engine. If those are the two things you're looking for, and you're not trying to, I wouldn't even set lap records, but if you're not just trying to go crazy on a road like Tail of the Dragon or the Stelvio Pass or something like that, many versions of that is what I enjoy doing when I'm driving, no matter where I'm driving. So this just isn't that car. I can tell you this hill here, this first turn isn't crazy, but in this car it's fine. But I can tell you in the Lotus, the McLaren, I could do 50 something through here. And I just don't think this car will bite the same way. This is about 45, and there's just a little floaty feeling in the front end. Obviously I can go faster than that, but this is a street. See that little kick at the rear? The front just not sliding right in gives you a little hop in the back, and I don't know, it's just, obviously I can go faster than that. But A, I know there was a cop right here earlier. I guess he isn't here anymore. But A, that. B, I'm on a road. I'm not just gonna go stupidly fast. And to go stupidly fast, I want to feel completely like at one with the car. And that's what I get from some of the other cars, and not this. I think the reviews calling this car a GT3 convertible are what put me off to it, because it is an unbelievable car. It's just not what I was expecting, and that's okay. Sometimes expectations set your reality. What I will say is the four-wheel steering is great, because this kind of turn I could not make in the Lotus, and look at that. Easy in the Speedster.